So I'm just gonna make a couple of questions, and then we'll open up to the public that surely you have lots of questions to make. So my first question to you all, and whoever wants to answer it, you don't need to go one by one like as it's compulsory. No. One of the things that we perceive is that humorists have a bigger freedom of expression, or maybe, what is it? Not freedom after expression. They have more freedom of movement, but on the other hand, the risk is higher. It's like you have more freedom, people are tolerating you, but at the same time, if you really hurt somebody in power, you really hurt them badly. How do you feel about it? Do you think that's the way you feel, or do you think that it's different in the different cases of your different countries? I think I will start with Harris, since he was the shortest one of all of you, and then we'll go whoever wants to speak.
Well, yeah, I mean, we have this policy, take no prisoners. You know about it. You're Americans, right? So that's not so funny, right? All right. We take no prisoners in our humor and satire, and when we get threats, we just handle it. For example, there was one mister who wanted to rape our children. We said we don't have children yet in the newsroom. Yeah. We don't, really. Yeah. We didn't make any yet. So basically, we feel a bit more free than other media in Bosnia and Herzegovina, especially in the sense of politics, because we can say what nobody can say. For example, we translated conclusions of European Commission we said we translated to Bosnian language, but actually they were already translated. But we translated it in a way that none of the media couldn't do because of the professionalism. But basically, I think what we wrote is the most true conclusions of European Commission wrapped around in a very diplomatic blah, 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 blah.
Harris, you make a lot of fun of different nationalities. The Croats, the Serbs, the Bosnians that are living in your country, and that's something sort of sacred for everybody, and yet you want to do away with this kind of patriotism, no?
Yeah, well, because we think that this nationality thing between three more or less tribes within 3.something million people is such a ridiculous thing, because, I mean, look at USA. I mean, this is a very positive example. There's like hundreds of nationalities and ethnicities and identities and whatever. And like, we can handle our three ethnicities, and we mock that all the time. For example, here's one. We have 3 presidents. And that's not a joke. We do. Really, like 3 presidents.
Sitting.
That's really funny, and it's really reality. Like the only country in the world. Just because of this stupidity that we have, like, you know, 3 nationalities, and then who is better, who is not better. And also, our constitution is discriminatory because Roma, Jew, any other American or Italian can't be a president of Bosnia and Herzegovina, but only like 3 main nationalities.
Thank you, Harris. Anybody wants to comment about the freedom?
About the freedoms, I think it started off like that. That's what we felt when we started. It's like, yeah, we have more freedoms and we could play a little bit more. We never had bylines, and we still don't have bylines. And we thought that would protect us to an extent. It didn't. Now, I would be arrested in a lot of countries if I come close to them in the Middle East, and everyone works underground. No one is known. Everyone's always on edge, and we're just left to see how long we could make it until they decide that that they want to end what we do. So it started off with those freedoms, but it didn't, like, they picked up. That's the problem. It depends on how. You could imagine what tolerance Saudi has, for example. Like, it's not much, and we don't leave anyone from our criticism in the whole region. So,
despite your effort to bring all these different audiences and talk to them,
it's about the audiences. It's about those
power.
few in power. They're very few, and they're very, very powerful, and they have, and one of the main problems is that their power extends beyond. So, for example, I wouldn't be able to go back home because of something I wrote on Saudi. Like, that's just, it's a different country. Like, the fact that it could cross borders, how it could be affected, like, makes you very aware of what you do at all times.
Marianna, you had a story, a very funny story about how the police took your cartoons and they were laughing. Tell us a little bit about that story.
When we tried to organize exhibition, no one gave us a space, and we decided to do open-air exhibition. After that exhibition, we have many policemen visited our exhibition, and after that, our car was broken, and criminal case opened. I went to police to write an explanation what happened and about all these things, and police, they open our website and they start to look our cartoons. It was cartoon about ombudsman, silence, and about the person who is sitting on presidential chair. They were laughing, laughing, and they came to police cartoon. They became very serious. And one of them asked me, do not do such things, do not cartoon policeman. And I answered with the words that president usually use. And it was very funny because they were shocked. And I think coming to your question, some of our friends, they usually tell us that we didn't take everything serious. I think this is the way maybe we can work and survive. We are even answering the tweets or pressing with another cartoon. So I think we hope this works.
Anybody else wants to
The answer
make
is a hope. I hope the government have a sense of humor. It's only thing.
Yeah.
King, why are they so afraid, King, do you think, of humor? I mean, at the end, you're just making people laugh and think.
What,
The powerful, people who are powerful, you wouldn't think that they should be afraid. Why would they be afraid? They have so much power. They have guns, they have...
I think for us, it's because the work we do is very well accepted by the public, and it trickles down all the way to the kids. So a lot of times, the politicians would be very scared of what we'll mention, how we'll highlight them, because their families and their children ask them questions. And a lot of times, the politicians have come up to us and say, please, avoid talking about some of us for the sake of our reputations. But you see, that's the thing. You're in public office. We shouldn't have to avoid you. Yeah.
Their skin is very thin, I think, because I think part of it is just because they know they don't belong, and it's just like they're a G.
I think it's also just always difficult knowing, like people always ask, when do you know if you've crossed the line, or do you have a line? And it's quite difficult knowing what that line is, because on the one hand, we know that quite a few government ministers watch our stuff, and we found that out in kind of weird ways. You're like at a big media conference, and the Minister of Information and Communication Technologies is making a speech there, and then it's question and answer time. And I asked him a question. He goes, Comrade Fatso, yeah, I follow you. And you're kind of worried there. Do you follow me in the old school sense? Of like, you got your old school follow, like follow back Friday with your dudes in dark suits following me. It's like, no, I follow you on social media. I was like, whew, all right, that's cool. But he said, I find some of your clips quite entertaining, and some of your criticism quite enlightening. And you're kind of like, oh, okay, so these dudes do, they do watch it, I think maybe to get a sense of also what young people are thinking. but you never know when you've crossed the line, because I think we did a special on former President Mugabe's birthday. He always has a big birthday bash, and we did a special on it, and we're just taking the piss how old he was and how his cake cost $1 million and so forth. And then it was like the week after that where the city council kind of arrived and decided to try and demolish our offices. So you never know. Where is that line?
Talking about that, Carlos, you are in a country where probably the most important humorist of all times was assassinated. And so there is not a matter of being put in jail, it's a matter of being killed. How do you do it in terms of I see it a little bit like a boxing match, like you punch them sometimes and then you go back. It's like it's like a dance all the time, so that you don't go too far as you cannot do it again. How do you see that relationship with power? Like you're always.
So just to give some context, in Colombia, between 1985 and 2010, about 100 journalists were murdered. Jaime Garzón, who was a big political satirist, was murdered in 1999. So that are big numbers. The country has experienced an improvement in the situation in the last 10 years. So I do feel there's more confidence to go out there and just try to do something new. And I'm not talking only about myself, but about new projects that are emerging there, as Actualidad Panamericana, La Puya, people that are trying to do this. So on the one hand, I feel that the environment is better. But on the other hand, on one of these, there are so many topics that are not being discussed thoroughly. So one of the things that are out there is the ties that former President Uribe might have with right-wing paramilitary groups, the things that haven't been uncovered on corruption of Odebrecht, for example. And when I did this series about the Attorney General, many people start emailing you, sending you DMs, telling you, look, you should just go after this lead. And one of the things that I sort of tried to decide was we are going first to build ourselves in a more secure way, like really have a strong base, really be something that people are aware about before starting just picking fights that we are not really able to follow through. So I really expect that if La Mesa becomes something stronger, we are going to be able to go after big fights. But this, for now, showing how ridiculed they make out of themselves in media, the interviews they give, the relationships they have with the powerful, are like the fights that I think we can pick up right now and show them how we are really after them. And one of the things that Juan was saying, that they should be aware that La Mesa is not owing anything to anyone. So that's something that I'm trying to build in this year as a base.
Juan, in Venezuela, you have to have a lot of humor to have hope. Yeah. Do you think you're building that hope with your humor?
I think it's a mix. I think we're satirizing what's happening, and people understand that we're not making fun of the suffering, but we're making fun of the powerful. And by holding the powerful accountable, you're at least driving in the right direction. I wouldn't say that we give hope with humor. I think that's a stretch. But at least we're helping to bridge the gap with the censorship that we have on TV and radio. That's basically all news are controlled in Venezuela. And with our satire, I think we're helping. On the other hand, I don't think that we're a top priority for them. I think they have politicians, and I think they have investigative journalists that they're really after, that they have bigger fish to fry, we believe.
Do you think there's a possibility, and this is a question open to all, and with this we close this part and we open to the public. Do you think there's a possibility of marrying these two forces, like investigative journalism and humor, and so that it can actually have give humor more potency and give like investigative journalism more reach?
Yeah, one show we produce is called Pero Tenemos Patria. No, it's called El Reporte Semanal with El Profesor Briseño. It's in an OTT called Vivo Play. And we added journalists to the team. And it's working pretty good. They're collaborating. He's finding stories. They're finding funny ways to express them. So I think that's a first step. Then maybe collaborating with other mediums. So I think that's, for sure, that's a possibility. And you're doing your own investigation, right?
Yeah, we check our sources as well. Even if it doesn't appear in the news, we sometimes report on it in our way, of course, but sometimes we call our sources in major political parties just to check on stuff.
Anybody has any questions?
That's the last guy who's living in Venezuela.
He was the last last guy living.
Yes, I still live there. Hi, thank you. I'm Ricardo del Búfalo. I'm a comedian from Venezuela. And I have this question. I only see one woman in the panel. And in Venezuela, we have few women that are comedians. I wonder what you think, why there's more male comedians than women comedians.
Actually, I am not a comedian.
So zero.
Investigative journalist, and we work together with my team, and this helps us to create more powerful cartoons, because we use all the tools that we use in journalism. We bring together, and this is not an answer to your question, but in any case, I don't know the reason.
I think for us, with our experience, it's just, I think it goes down to what I was talking about earlier about conservatism, because people are just like, it's that one level further. It's that disrespect. It's getting yourself out there, and that is something that really, really gets a woman uncomfortable in the region. So it's like from our contributors, there's about a 10%, and we're kind of really happy with that. It started off with like really almost zero at all times. And even when we tried to hire people who weren't comedians just to work with the team, just like that sense of association was enough for women to run away. And we haven't found the way to work around that yet. We're luring them in slowly into it. But, yeah.
What about Africa? Is there a lot of women comedians in Africa? I mean, comedians, I'm using the same word. Humorists, political humorists, yeah.
I think our team
Satire.
Our team, a satire team of writers, the lead writer or head of department has always been a woman for some reason.
Amazing.
I'm not
so
sure.
we should have invited her, not you.
Invite her next time.
But you're the king, yeah.
I think having the perspective, I would say, there's too much of a similar perspective from an all-male, kind of team, in my opinion. And they, at least in my experience from our team, they always want to be the guys helping drive the story or direct the story. So I think maybe there's more freedom in that sense than in the areas, yeah.
Than in the other areas.
Yeah.
I mean, to add on to what King was saying, I mean, I know his team and they're great. In terms of, I think in both of our societies, but I mean, we're coming from quite patriarchal societies, so the lack of women's representation it's
structural.
Yeah, it's a structural thing, and so also I think as satirists, as media activists, it's also about taking conscious efforts within your organization to make sure that you're giving space to women's voices. So for our show, The Week, for example, the director and editor is a woman. For quite a few, all of our satire shows, actually, the woman is a producer. But we're wanting to now, we're consciously moving towards getting more women script writers and comedians involved. So we're working on a new project, which is going to be an all-woman project on political satire, female producer, female director, female script writers, and female voiceovers. Because I don't think you're not able to combat sexism if you don't take active measures against it.
What about Latin America?
Well, I would say that it's also a matter of really turning the tide on the long traditional issues that the media has. I mean, female workers in the media have been underrepresented for a long time, and we at least in La Mesa belong to a project that is led by a woman, by Juanita León, who founded La Silla Vacía. So my expectation would be to be able to build within the creative team a representative sample, not only because we need to have women there, because there are such different views to bring into the table, such different humor, that is something that if we don't build in a really diverse way, we're not going to do strong political satire in the country. So that's a challenge.
Juan, any thoughts? I think we have to close down. I'm so sorry. You have lots of questions. Can we do one more question? Yeah, one more question.
Hello. This feels unfair. I'm also Venezuelan. And I also live in Venezuela, so that makes two of us. So my name is Elena Carpio, and I'm wondering, we live in a world of growing polarization, right? And ever more people seem to be so grounded in their own opinions, and we have confirmation bias, that it's sometimes hard to penetrate those opinions and get involved in a conversation. So I was wondering, because humor has the capacity to sometimes break down those walls and start conversations where there wouldn't be any in other cases, what are you doing to fight polarization in your countries? And is that important to you at all?
Yes, no?
10 seconds answer to Juan, who hasn't spoken that much.
I think it's possible to change people's opinions, but the way that we do it is just, and I repeat what I said, making fun of ourselves and making people realize how silly the decisions we're making look. I think that sums it up, kind of. Yeah. Please clap.
Okay, thank you very much.